Senate to convene special sitting next week to adopt motion to consider the National Dialogue Committee mandated with finding a common ground for the political stalemate.
Somalia's government announces ban on social media platforms TikTok and Telegram, saying the sites are being used by terrorists and groups responsible for spreading immorality.
West Africa's main regional bloc, ECOWAS, rejects proposal by Niger's military junta to hold elections within 3 years, extending political impasse that could trigger military intervention if no agreement is reached following a July coup.
Well, good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. It promises to be quite a warm day here in Nairobi. It's already warm as we speak, 16 degrees Celsius. This early in the morning, yes, that promises to be warm and promises to have highs of 27 degrees Celsius later in the day. How hot is your coffee where you are? My name is Fred Ndimuli.
Well, and I'm Flora Limuki, and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. This 22nd day of August 2023. We do have a great show lined up for you. And of course, on the other side, we will be discussing matters digitizing small and medium enterprises. Do stick by for that.
Most definitely, and you can always interact with us on our social media handles below your screens at Nyarungita_Limuki_F and at Fred Ndimuli. Talk to us on all these particular platforms that engage with us. We'll be taking a look at what you are saying. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyarungita.
To the top story now, the Senate is set to hold a special sitting next week to adopt a motion to consider the National Dialogue Committee that is mandated with finding a common ground for the political stalemate. National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah says the team is keen on having the talks held within the ambit of the Constitution, hence the need to have it pass through both the Houses of Parliament. The Senate, which resumes early September from its recess, will hold sittings early in the interest of its magnitude and the 60-day time frame set for it. Ichung'wah further revealed that the committee has finalized preliminary issues, which includes a revision of the framework agreement that will act as a guiding light for the talks henceforth. The 10-member team negotiating the 2022 post-election crisis will report to the president and the Azimio One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga within 60 days. And even as we consider the talks and all issues surrounding the same, today we ask, do you feel that political parties in Kenya represent your interest? We'll be having this discussion with my panelists later on. Do you feel that political parties in Kenya represent your interests? You can share your views on X, formerly Twitter, at TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Let's now get the day's diary.
And on the day's diary this morning, we do start with President William Ruto is expected to attend the Maasai Cultural Festival at Sekenani Gate that is in Masai Mara. This is ahead of his 5-day visit of the North Rift region, which begins on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. From that, Kenyans will now be required to pay for Kenya Wildlife Services, KWS, through the e-Citizen platform, following the integration of payment for all government services effective Tuesday, today. And in matters continental, IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center, that is ISPAC, is organizing the 65th Greater Horn of Africa Climate Outlook Forum, called GACOF 65, for the October to December 2023 season, today in Nairobi, Kenya. And away from that, matters Copyright Exchange Forum. The Kenya Copyright Board and German International Corporation will be holding an exchange forum for creatives on August 22nd today. And the theme is economic value of copyright in music and digital creative industries. And before we actually take a look at today in history, just to update you on what is also happening today, the BRICS Summit is expected to happen today in South Africa, and also the music festival gala sent for Nakuru today. We'll be following up on all that and giving you updates. Today in history, did you know that today, back in 1978, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's first president, passed on a day like today in the coast region. And internationally, the organization de l'Armée, that is OAS, attempts to assassinate the then French president Charles de Gaulle while he was riding to the airport with his wife. That is all on the day's diary, and today's in history. We'll be updating this diary as we move on. Now to the dailies.
Yes, let's now take a look at what's headlining on your newspapers this morning. We'll start off with the Daily Nation. Stormy teachers' pay talks begin. Union leaders meet TSC, that's a Teacher Service Commission officials today, to reopen salary increment negotiations that, however, start in acrimony after representatives of tutors rejected a pay rise proposed by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, insisting on much higher perks that reflect rising living costs. Unions have rejected up to 10% pay rise in salaries. Kupet says they're insisting on a 30 to 70% salary increment. They say the 10% is not enough. They're demanding implementation of career progression guidelines and enhanced medical benefits, especially maternity. Also issues surrounding their pension and the review of stipends for intern teachers. KNUT, on the other hand, wants lowest paid teacher to secure the highest percentage pay rise. Meanwhile, SRC has proposed a 7 to 10% pay rise. KNUT is also opposed to the demotion of primary school heads without degrees, as proposed by the Presidential Task Force. And that's the story on the Daily Nation this morning. The story is covered extensively on pages 6 and 7. The other big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation is at the bottom there. Technical team has until Friday to draft agenda for Ruto-Raila dialogue. The National Dialogue Committee, involving President Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga's factions, has tasked the technical team to frame the issues for discussion ahead of its meeting on Friday. Well, there's something there on healthcare. I don't know why it's been fitted there on the same strip. This could actually get lost on it.
No,
Through their unions, medics want the crisis facing the health sector, including pay grievances and the hiring of more health workers included in the agenda of the talks. Oh, yeah. Now I see the connection.
And yes, actually, it's interesting because even as the viewers should really expect for the editorial comment this morning.
Yes.
Speaking on health reforms.
Matters healthcare. Yeah. Yes. Other stories featuring on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. On the top strip of the Daily Nation, Kenya and Indonesia seal trade deals with consumers securing low-cost cooking oil. That's on the top strip. Interesting talking points. I think yesterday President Ruto and his counterpart from Indonesia launched the low-cost cooking oil dispensing machines here in Nairobi. We will see how that will work. Another story headlining on the front page, Kenyatta University bags most trophies as music festival closes. Winners Gala to be held today. Other quick highlights on the front page of the Daily Nation today. State agency in race against time to abolish CBC subjects. New study roots for boys vaccination against HPV. And 6 Kericho County officials face ouster over Londiani crush victims' funds scandal. And those are the stories on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning.
And have a look at the Standard this morning. The top headline there, Ruto grows into darling of the West. Western governments were receptive to the opposition agenda, but recent activities show they are abandoning support for the democratic ideals. And with parliament in hands of executive, the political space has drastically changed. And a quote by the president there, "It would be ungrateful of us to vilify the people who are creating opportunities for us. We have huge investments from the US government, Germany and others. We must know what our interests are and secure them." That's the headline on the Standard this morning. And university workers face job losses in numbers there. The number of students who choose to study at International Leadership University, 3 there, and 7 students want to take courses at Pan-African Christian University, and 200 is the number of courses that attracted less than 10 students, and another 200, the number of teaching staff that private universities are likely to sack in the first year of the new funding model. That story is on page 6 and 7 of the Standard this morning. Of course, seeing some universities have been hit hard by the declining admissions beginning in September, and will have to review their staffing numbers as well as perks paid to employees. And still on the Standard, the top strip of the Standard, no calm yet on Kisumu-Kericho border, matters security there. That story is on page 12 of the Standard this morning. And EAC bid to remove trade barriers, matters business there. Kenya's big day in Budapest, as our athletes they are represented as in Budapest for these World Athletics Championships that are going on. And tale of widows fighting alone to save their lands. The death of a husband is not only source of grief, but a nightmare to women who battle marauding relatives keen to disinherit them. That story, you'll find it on page 14 and 15 of the Standard this morning. Away from that, Ruto Science deals with Indonesia president. And music festival winners date with president. The winners at the 95th edition of the annual music festival are set to perform at a gala to be held at Nakuru High School. At least 600 classes were showcased this year. That is what we have on the Standard.
Right, you can take a look at Business Daily. Business Daily goes with the Hustler Fund. Defaults hit 3 billion shillings in 9 months. So 29% of 10.2 billion shillings loan book deemed portfolio at risk. Defaults beat microfinance banks who have 23%. Okay. And if the floor, Fred, have all these months later ever attempted to try Hustler Fund, he'll be telling me.
We could be defaulters.
And
even 1 billion shillings in 9 months, that's huge, man.
And I'm reminded the time when President William Ruto was in, was it Meru? Yes, either Embu or Meru. I think it was Embu. And, you know, he was really appealing to the residents there. Kindly, just pay back. Yes.
And in
Lakini serikali itawafuata, but just pay back. Right, that is on the front page of it, and the big story on Business Daily. The bottom strip goes with expensive spare parts trigger car write-offs on weak shilling. It gives you a graph there on John Ma Motor Insurance underwriting profits in billion shillings. The class increased its underwriting losses in the first quarter by 923 million shillings. Well, from that, on the right side of Business Daily, the deals Kenya signed with Indonesia on Widodo visit gives you a whole bit of that, and you can take a look at which kind of deals were signed and maybe how helpful are they for you as a Kenyan. Civicon faces pay demand in Kenyan contract row, and retirees failed to claim 166 million shillings benefits from NSSF. I believe yesterday the Standard had a similar headline where the retirees were actually expected to benefit from all that. That is on Business Daily this morning.
Okay. I have today's edition of Taifa Leo. And on Taifa Leo, the big headline is walioingia mitini. Waliokuwa mstari wa mbele kumfanyia Raila kampeni za urais watoweka hadharani tangu Rais Ruto aingie mamlakani. Baadhi ya wanasiasa waliotekeleza majukumu muhimu katika mrengo wa Azimio la Umoja kwenye kampeni za uchaguzi mkuu wa Agosti 9 mwaka uliopita hawajaonekana kwenye hafla za kisiasa tangu Rais William Ruto alipoingia mamlakani. And they've shared photos of a few of these leaders: Bwana Hassan Joho, Bwana Gideon Moi, Bwana Maina Kamanda, Bi Charity Ngilu, Bwana Raphael Tuju na Bwana Peter Kenneth walioingia mitini. That's a big headline on the front page of Taifa Leo today. On the top strip of Taifa Leo, kanisa la ACK lazidiwa na mzozo. Mirengo miwili katika dayosisi ya Kapenguria yafanya ibada tofauti. Interesting. And still on the top strip, some sports there. Chelsea, Man U watolewa pumzi ligini. Miamba wa EPL waanza vibaya msimu mpya. We can only say sorry to those.
And Arsenal won yesterday.
Yes,
no,
Arsenal has had a stellar record so far.
Oh, yes.
Na henga ulioketi chini wakisema kuanza vibaya si kumaliza vibaya.
Well, yeah.
Lakini huwezi anza vibaya mara mbili.
Let's look at the bottom strip of the Taifa Leo, some other highlights making it to the front page. MCAs kuwa na kikao na Rais Ruto. Viongozi hao wanadai nyongeza ya mishahara. And I remember yesterday during the inter-county games in Nakuru, there were some demonstrations there by a group of MCAs protesting or demanding the salary arrears. So yes, definitely a big talking point there. Another story on the front page of Taifa Leo: madaktari wataka afya iwe agenda ya mazungumzo. And tatizo la kichefuchefu unaposafiri, pata mipasho kuhusu afya kwenye jarida la Afya Jamii. That's the front page of Taifa Leo this morning.
Kichefuchefu.
Kichefuchefu.
I think let's have a look at the People Daily this morning. We'll be coming back to the People Daily in a short while.
They have it on the screen.
Okay. Ruto pay bill rule hurts state farms. There is, even as key agencies feel the squeeze of order requiring them to use one pay platform, judge certifies case agent. Of course, there is a group that has filed a case against this pay bill, and of course we'll be waiting for the verdict on that case. And Kenya and Indonesia in trade pacts, that is concerning the state visit by the Indonesian president there, Joko Widodo, with the president. And it is pretty much what on the bottom strip of the People Daily. Okay, that is part of what we have on the People Daily this morning.
Right, we can, okay, there we have.
Okay, there we have it on the top strip of the People Daily this morning. Gor Mahia, yes, we are the team to beat. You can find that story on page 31. Even as the new season of Kenya Premier League kicks off in 6 days, and defending champions Kogalo are not being modest about their ambition, and definitely looking forward to their performance this season. And new rules on how to grade KCSE students there. A story on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. And another story there featured on the People Daily: wedding tragedy survivors speak out. The ceremony was going on well until they started celebrating the bride. One witness says of incident in which 6 people died when they fell into an underground tank. It is also, and collapsed as they danced in jubilation. That sad story there on page 7 of the People Daily this morning.
Right, from Kenya, across
we
the
still
borders.
have the Star.
Oh, the Star, yeah, by the way.
Do you have it?
I do have the Star here with me. So the Star goes with Ruto plan to keep in touch with hustlers. He has been visiting various parts of the country nearly every week. Okay, and he's in Masai Mara today, by the way. The whole Ma Festival is happening.
I think it's only the Star that has given the Ma Festival some prominence on the front pages. I've not seen any mention of what's happening in, because I can see the music festival gala being held in Nakuru. The Ma Festival, no mention of it. At least the Star has mentioned it.
The Star has done us justice and giving us even some photos there. If you're not really privileged to actually go to Masai Mara and even in Narok and have the whole feel of Masai Mara, or rather the Ma Festival, you can have some pictorials here. You can probably the weekend is not too far. Decide to even head there and have some nyama choma. Ran's transition to senior warriors in Narok. Well, away from that game plan, President repeating election strategy that saw him triumph over Raila. It has to do with him keeping in touch with the hustlers. On the top strip of the Star this morning, dialogue team undertakes to ignore ranting politicians. Remember, was it yesterday? There was I believe Taifa Leo having different leaders and what they're saying about some of this, the talks basically. Yes. Some of this saying it is a waste of time. Some of them saying just let the president do his job. So quite interesting there. That's right. Bottom strip of the Star. Voices, Michael Wayenda, Boma Stocks put Kenyans first. I believe that is an op-ed. No freedom, neighbor from hell who raped granny to serve 30 years in prison. Okay, that is matters. Court and lawmakers urged to move fast and avert looming electoral boundaries crisis. Right, now you can move to Tanzania.
Yes, let's cross the border into Tanzania and we look at Habari Leo. Maadhimisho ya miaka 60 ya kanisa la Kiinjili la Kilutheri Tanzania, KKKT. That features on the front page of Habari Leo. The event was attended by none other than the President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Rais Samia, hakuna mwenye ubavu misuli. Ni katika kuligawa taifa, asema usalama, amani, umoja vitaendelea kuwapo. Aitaka KKKT na Watanzania kukabili mabadiliko ya tabia nchi.
It's interesting how yesterday and also today we have seen thematic expressions of religion and also a bit of politics here. Yesterday, saying let's separate both of them.
Yes, these are some of the deep-seated issues that affect our region, yet we rarely discuss issues to do with religion especially, and how it intertwines with the state. So that's the front page of Habari Leo. We do have daily news as well.
Oh yes, quite busy.
Another busy front page there.
Because of the no muscle can crack TZ. You really have to zoom in there.
It's the same headline as that on Habari Leo. It has to do with President Samia Suluhu's comments at the 60th anniversary event. The government continues to count on religious leaders in entrenching our values, norms, and traditions. The same thing we were talking about. No muscle can crack TZ. On the front page of Daily News as well, Indonesia's president visit to spur trade, meaning the Indonesian president is also heading to Tanzania immediately after leaving Kenya.
And they're also expecting, I don't know if they will also expect more edible oils or other factors that will actually boost trade for them.
Okay. I think we have quite a number of dailies today from Tanzania. We have the Citizen as well.
Okay, and on the Citizen, the headline on the Citizen this morning is how dollar's appreciation is affecting debt servicing. Tanzania is facing a mounting challenge in serving its external debt as the US dollars appreciate against the shilling sees the national debt valuation rise by nearly 2 trillion shillings in 3 months. Of course, that story on the dollar there has been a top headline in Tanzania for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. And Indonesia's president visit to boost relations, of course, after his tour in Kenya is expected in Tanzania. And away from that, clerics mean no harm when they criticize, says ALCT. Matters religion and politics. They are still on the Citizen this morning. Work on BRT fifth phase to commence in December. And parastatal chiefs warned over abuse of authority. That is what we have on the top page of the Citizen this morning.
Basi tutazame gazeti au jarida la Mwananchi. Jarida hili lina kidokezo sawa tu sawia na la Citizen. Lingine Habari Leo. Msimamo KKKT kwa Rais Samia yapongeza ukimya kwenye kuyakabili masuala magumu. Nasema viongozi wa dini wana imani naye, yaunga mkono uwekezaji, yaonya siasa. Dini likitaka viongozi wa dini wapongeze na kukemea. Rais Samia asema hakuna mwenye misuli ya kuligawa wala kuliuza taifa. Mbali na hayo ni kuwa mkuu wa shule asimamishwa kwa tuhuma za udhalilishaji. Kwingineko ni kuwa mbunge Ngorongoro ajisalimisha polisi, alalamika kutishiwa. Wakati mbunge wa Ngorongoro CCM Emmanuel Ole Shangai akijisalimisha polisi kuitikia wito, wakilishi wa vijana wilayani humo wameiomba serikali na jeshi la polisi kusitisha kamata inayoendelea. Taarifa zaidi katika ukurasa wa 3.
Okay. I think it's only fair we mention what's headlining in Uganda as well. We may not have the front page of the Daily Monitor, but I can access it and see the headline. Police blame careless drivers for fatal crashes. That is a headline on Daily Monitor, one of the big dailies in Uganda. Police blame careless drivers for fatal crashes. All right. And now we go to that segment that we call Karakacha now.
I can definitely see the East African here, but I believe we took a look at it yesterday. Matters exiting MONUSCO, who is next. Giving a whole Matters Congo there. Samia using Magufuli tactics to stem dissent. Zimbabwe polls, new vote, old problems. Okay, now to our caricature this morning on page 16 of the Standard. Okay, now this is quite an interesting one. Whole caricature there of a gentleman, a whole godfather and everything, drug barons, and just on the whole side of it, conduits. I'm a law-abiding Kenyan with a legitimate source of income. This has to really do with the whole fiasco we did see yesterday. The alleged, the whole arrest and even of alleged drug dealers. Yes, the whole Mother Wangara, applying for bail amid arrest fears. It was a whole interesting row. Okay, that is on page 16 of the Standard. Now to page 17 of the Daily Nation. The whole Gulf oil deal, and Business Daily had this yesterday. Stepping back, the government really stepping back. We have a caricature that looks like Cabinet Secretary of Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, holding that whole oil thingy there. The
power pump, fuel pump.
Fuel pump. And caricatures there of IMF, and also one that looks like President William Ruto. They're like holding up paper like, okay, what's This is going to be tricky.
The cartoons today are not that simple. But the themes are clear. We understand exactly what they're talking about. One talks about the fuel, the Gulf fuel deal that Kenya entered into, and that's on the Daily Nation. And the fact that the government has now announced they will be stepping back from that deal. And on the Standard, issues of drug trafficking and that raid on a drug den in Gara last week by police.
I also have, even as we continue, also have People Daily. I mean, it's fair to also look at, there's a wish I had for Taifa Leo here, but for People Daily is on page 10, and it goes with matters, matters sports. The lessons were fruitful. Taking a look at FIFA Women's World Cup 2023, Spain's reign of England. That is on page 10 of People Daily. That's basically what we have here.
And that is what we call karakacha when your morning cafe.
Yes.
Okay, anyone that interests you?
They're just may, but I think the Standard one, just because the DCI arrested the wrong person, and there's this whole confusion. So I think it's time. It's not the first time you're seeing such thing happen. So it also calls upon the DCI to really regain the trust of the people, and in terms of doing due diligence when such activities are involved.
Yes. Remember the question we're asking this morning. Do you feel that political parties in Kenya represent your interests? Do you feel that political parties in Kenya represent your interests? You can share your feedback to that question on X, formerly Twitter, at TV47 News. You can also do the same on Facebook at TV47 Kenya is a page. After the break, I'll be having my panelists to discuss these and a lot more. This morning, we're privileged to have Betty Adera from the UDA party, Joseph Kagai from the Jubilee party, as well as Mundalo Advice from the Jubilee party as well, but a different wing of that party. It will be a very interesting discussion, especially to do with political parties and whether or not they actually serve your interests. That after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indemuli. We want to get down into the discussion this morning, and allow me to introduce my guests, starting with the lady Betty Adera from the UDA party. It's good to have you back.
Thank
Betty.
you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Also with us this morning, Joseph Kagai, political strategy, Jubilee Party. Now, when you mention Jubilee Party, Joseph, we have to be very careful. Is it Jubilee A, Jubilee B? Now, which, is it Kanini Kega team or Kioni team?
I think, first, thank you for the invite. And just to clarify, there is only one Jubilee Party that is led by Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and the SG is Jeremiah Kioni.
Okay.
So any other thing is just sideshows.
Now we're clear where you So we're still hoping to be joined by someone else, Mundalo Advice, from the same Jubilee Party. Not sure which wing exactly. We'll try and clarify as soon as he gets here. Interesting headlines today, none that is very political. Of course, we'll still come to the issues of political parties and what part they play in the talks going on and whether or not they actually represent the interests of Kenyans. But before that, it's only fair that you look at some of the headlines. And the one I can pick today is on the front page of the Standard and has to do with education. University education. University workers face job losses, and this has a lot to do with the dwindling numbers of students enrolling for university degree courses. Now, some universities have been hit hard by declining admissions beginning September and will have to review their staffing numbers as well as packs paid to employees. The Commission for University Education has recommended that government stops funding rejected degrees, dealing a blow to institutions and their sustainability. And they say that up to 200 courses attracted less than 10 students. Yeah. The number of teaching staff that private universities are likely to sack in the first year of new funding model, about 200 of them. And number of students who want to take courses at Pan-African Christian University, only 7. The number of students who chose to study international leadership at the university are 3. Now, the role of education in a society cannot be understated. The fact that it is a basic component of the economy. Education is key. Yet we are seeing more and more Kenyan youth shunning away from university education, ignoring university degrees. And I'm looking for a tweet here by one Donald Kip Korir, where he talked about the same issues. And once I trace it, we'll come back to it. But what is your analysis of this issue? The fact that some courses that have been there for quite a long time have attracted less than 10 people interested in learning that. Betty.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to you and good morning to Kenyans who are watching. University education generally has been an emotive issue in Kenya, not now, not for the last 5 or 10 years, forever. Even the time when I was pursuing my own undergraduate studies many, many years ago. But to respond to your question, a couple of things. It is also true that there are many of our students, sons and daughters, who graduate every other year, and then there are no commensurate jobs to their degrees. All right? And this is not an issue that is starting now. It has been forever, and unemployment is a global phenomenon. Number 2 is we have seen over the years mushrooming also of universities. There's universities almost in every corner of the village these days, a branch of something, all right? And in my view, that space has been liberal to a point where now when you open too many shops, what do you expect? The clientele ni wale too, all right? Then number 3, there are also some courses that are probably juicy by the name of it, but once you pursue it and you actually graduate in it, then what? What are the job pathways with that particular degree? And then, of course, lastly, to my knowledge, not everybody, gets selected to the course that they chose for all manner of reasons. Now, lastly, There's also now the narrative around skills-based training, all right? Do you want to spend 4 years, come out with a degree that is not very useful? Or do you want to then pursue, pathways for skills building, so that at the end of your TVET training or whatever course you go for skills building, you're ready and you're at it, day one. So for me as a country, these are conversations we need to have as a people and inform our partner, especially like with private sector, to inform the courses that our students, sons and daughters pursue, at higher education levels, so that when they graduate, they are ready to roll. Not that when they graduate, you hire them, you still have to train them for again another year.
Yes.
In a particular sector before they can become functional.
Yeah, but Joseph, university education should indeed mirror the expectations of the nation, the economy of the nation, the direction that the nation is taking. Kenya's economy predominantly depends on agriculture. Even the current administration is key on boosting agriculture. Yet, and I quote this tweet by lawyer Donald Kipkorir, talking about raising concern that the following degree courses attracted no single application: food security, horticulture, forestry, fisheries, mineralogy, soil science, entrepreneurship, industrial technology, environmental management. Surely, this is what people should be learning. If at all agriculture is a backbone of this economy, how come there seems to be a disconnect between the degree courses that people are interested in and what is actually beneficial to this economy?
Fred, I think, first of all, thank you once again for the invite and good morning, Kenyans. I think this is portraying the image of the country that we are in. The society itself is running away from responsibility, to my thinking. When you see young people choosing to follow paths that are not the traditional path, because when you talk about agriculture, we say that it is the biggest contributor in our GDP, yet the young people are not running towards that. And when you talk about agriculture, it's not just farming, because when we say agriculture, people think it's just farming, going to the farm. But you look at the courses that comes to improve on the economy that surrounds agriculture, they are instant, they pay instantly. But young people are running away from it. Why? Because we have a country that we have championed shortcuts a lot. We have degraded the returns of hard work. We think if I go to be a doctor, if I go through engineering, it will take a lot of time and I will stay for a long time before getting a job. So they look for other shortcuts, other short courses that give returns immediately. And that is a problem that I think it is actually in the Ministry of Education. A young person who is pursuing to aspire to be any person, there has to be information. There has to be civic education. There has to be in schools. When I was in primary school, we were having symposiums to be told about these big courses, why the Kenyan industry need engineers, why the economy needs the farming technology. But nowadays, there is nothing like that. You see the clubs that were there in our days when we were in high school, those clubs are not there anymore. So the clubs that used to inform the students on which courses are better to improve our country, there was that patriotic feeling in every student that if I become a lawyer, I will be going to pursue justice for Kenyans, or I will represent Kenyans in different ways. If I become an engineer, I will develop machinery that will improve my grandmother's farm. So those informations are not there anymore. When we were having those small farms when in high school, we were doing crop dressing, all those things. This time there is none. And then you have a government that is not focused on that need, the need for information to our young people. The only information that is there is about Bitcoin, binary, those things. Things that you can do and get money instantly. Recently you saw how they were lining up for scanning for their eyes. The government has failed to actually come to the students from class 7, maybe grade 7 now or grade 6 now, and tell the students there is this market. So if you have these sets of skills in these markets, this is what you can get. And that patriotism to build our own country, I think has been taken away.
Okay. Betty, do you think we're missing a point here with the country has just been introduced to a raft of recommendations by the Presidential Working Party on reforms in the education sector, mainly to do with the CBC, also university degrees, the introduction of course-specific fees. Should the government also consider that if at all these agriculture-related causes are the ones key to the economy, that probably the government should come out and actually encourage through better, better payments, probably, if I may call it subsidies, by subsidizing education in as far as these degree courses are concerned. And probably what Joseph says, the issue of communication as well, that they're quiet. Looking at the papers this week, more and more Kenyans are interested in arts-based degrees as opposed to agriculture-based degrees.
Thank you very much. First of all, allow me to just respond to a point that my fellow panelist has made, that the government is promoting Bitcoin. There's nothing further from that is not anywhere close to the truth. There's no way a government can support and fund and promote Bitcoin. You know very well that's not true. However, this current government, the Kenya Kwanza administration, to be honest, came on board under the bottom-up economic transformation, paying closest attention to populations at the bottom of the pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid is where we find who? Most of these young people that we are talking about, who have just graduated, who have gone to technical colleges, who are still pursuing whatever, course it is that they are pursuing. So the government has robust plans, to actually meet them at their point of their need. If we look at the Hustler Fund, if we look at Hustler Fund 2.0, that is actually encouraging young people from a very realistic perspective, that if you cannot get that white-collar job, should you just sit and wallow, or there's something you can still do with your energy that you have as a young person and the skills building that also come with it. Number two, we are seeing a very deliberate effort to digitalize the education sector, and in particular the TVETs. TVET is this college that is in between, the university itself and also post-secondary. Because not everybody is going to go to a university to pursue something. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody can do that. But there's this other pathway in here that talks about skills building. That once you graduate, you have that skill in your hand, in your head, ready to enter the market. And now they're digitalizing that space to enhance service delivery, to enhance outputs, and to enhance impact at the end of the day. And when you're talking about young people and you're talking also about digitalization processes, then I think you're speaking to the young person in this country today. Now, lastly, education sector reform is something that has been going on for the long time. It didn't start with this administration. It will not end with this administration. And I think this is an administration that is a listening administration. They're just slightly over a year, in power. And they're listening, finding out that this CBC that they found, they didn't create CBC, they found it. But even before CBC, there was a system, that was in place for children to get into classrooms and learn whatever it is that they're learning.
Just to clarify,
lastly,
where you say this current administration was not involved in any way with the development or coming up of the new curriculum, yet the person who's president right now was deputy president back then. Definitely, and as far as policy is concerned, we cannot say that he was not involved.
If you want us to go back to the politics of handshake, I'm happy.
It is not about politics.
I'm happy to do that.
This is a matter of education, not politics.
I'm responding to you. Mm-hmm. Now, CBC came in the last administration, right? That is what I'm saying. The current administration CBC has not just started today, mm-hmm. And CBC has its good parts. CBC has also its other parts that need to be continuously talked about and unpacked, and parents engaged even more to make it work. Again, competency-based training right from when a child is young is I think, a good thing. However, there are things that the current now administration is really looking into that, hey, we have had the cries of parents, of teachers, of stakeholders within the education sector. Can we go back to the drawing board and just take a closer look at them? That is exactly just what I'm saying. Okay. Lastly, back to my main point is, in terms of agriculture, even when I myself was in high school many, many years ago, agriculture was not a compulsory subject. There were compulsory subjects, maths, English, and those kinds of things. And since independence, agriculture has been our backbone in terms of our economic growth. So for me, what I would wish to say is that going forward, we may need to make agriculture more attractive to young people. We may need to unpack what even agriculture is in the first place, because there are thousands and thousands of pathways in between. If a young person can create a packet to package tea, that is a young person, an actor within the value chain, of agriculture, right? We are now seeing greening the environment. While it is a climate action response, it can also be an agricultural response, because a tree can be a fruit tree, serving, all manner of purposes. And I'm thinking that excuse me, the current administration so far is really doing, their best to unpack those, to educate the common mwananchi on what their priorities are, what it is that they're doing. You can only choose not to listen.
Okay. The issues that bedevil the world right now, issues of climate change, environmental conservation, and agriculture specifically for this continent and Kenya, should be key in as far as our education is concerned. Then why is it that we see more and more young people opting for quick return careers, boda, especially? Because enough people who shunned these degrees are opting for bodas. Yeah. It is a hustler economy, as politicians like to put it. Are politicians the biggest obstacle to this lack of information or understanding of the needs of this economy and where the young person should actually look?
I think, Fred, you just cracked it, because the message that we sell to the people of Kenya, it sinks in their minds. Psychologically, every time you watch the TV, everything that you're hearing is that it's hustler nation. Who is a hustler? It's a person who struggles through life. And then you champion that to be the agenda of an election, an agenda of an entire government. So even the young person there is not even willing to go to class, because they know they can get a wheelbarrow and go and sell tomato. What if the rain doesn't come? You see photos going around that for our economy to go down, they take photos at the shambas. How many people own such large farms? We don't. So when you have a narrative that shows a young person that you don't need to struggle through education. Education, first of all, is not an easy affair. For you to get these grades, you have to sweat, you have to wake up very early in the morning. And there was that incentive of that hard work by getting a good mark, a good grade, and a prize at the prize giving day. So young people were aspiring to struggle to attain that. But nowadays they are told, you don't need to struggle. With a wheelbarrow, you can go to the streets. But what this government is not telling the young people, if we don't invest in our own skills in different avenues, our country will have a problem. We'll have a country that we don't have engineers. What will happen? You remember when this government was championing that we shall transform the manufacturing, we're going to empower, to fund the TVS, to bring, and actually they banned a lot of things, no furnitures coming from outside. But yesterday the president was launching a machine, a dispenser machine, that is supposed to be done maybe at KU or somewhere. So the government is telling young people, you don't need to go through these courses, just get a simple avenue, get your phone, you can use your phone and earn money. But the things that drive an economy are engineering. And when we have young people shining away from these big courses, it is because the politicians are telling us, and not even just telling us, they are showing us that you can go in a corporation and employ people who are not even educated. Then we have scandals in that department. So a young person thinks, what if my person gets to the office? I will get to that office regardless of my education, and I will land at the government. So I don't need to struggle to get where? people are supposed to get. And by so doing, we deny this country to be what it was. We exported a lot of people who had skills in other. You remember, there was a time a teacher was paid a lot of money out of Kenya because we have trained them so well here in Kenya, but we are not paying them well. But when they go out of this country, even the nurses who come from Kenya, they get good jobs, good money. But in our country, whether you have a good degree, you don't earn anything. But when you're doing some odd jobs, you can earn money. So we have reduced the country to just money, monetary value, not improvement of life, which drives an economy.
And now it brings us to the question on the future of education university in Kenya, because the effect of the discussion we've just had is what we're seeing on the front page of the Standard, the fact that now universities will have to let go of lecturers. What kind of effect will that have on the Kenyan youth and our economy, Betty?
Allow me first of all to respond to something that my fellow panelists said. When you talk about people who are not educated and getting into the corporate world and becoming thieves there, that is wrong. We have seen educated people in high places with all manner of scandals that fall to them. So I think demonizing a young person who's struggling to make a living for himself or herself, I don't think that's like the way to go. What this administration is doing up to their promise is what? They looked at trying to put in systems and structures and strategies and interventions that is going to impact the bottom millions who are often forgotten. Even devolution is a form of a bottom-up approach, a form of devolving resources, devolving functions to bring services and resources as closest as possible to the people. These people is who? Are the people in the millions in the bottom of the pyramid. And if an administration for the first time is deliberately making effort to reach out to this population, realistically speaking, nothing theoretical, practical, makazi hakuna na mumesoma. And you're not, you're healthy, you have the energy and all that, and you have a smartphone, in your hands. There is still something that you can do to make a decent living, for yourself. And I'm thinking that is where this administration was coming up from, and their manifesto is actually driven by the bottom-up, economic transformation model. Let's place most emphasis at the bottom of the pyramid where majority of the people are. No wonder our motto is kazi ni kazi. As long as that thing, even wheelbarrow ni kazi too, that wheelbarrow will make you, do work for someone and earn a living at the end of the day. And when you earn that living, it moves a young person from all manner of wrong things. Now, coming back to the issue of universities, for me, here's what I'll say. If there's a system or an institution that does not evolve with the times, then they will die. If you don't build your skills every other day, even in the media sector, utajikuta uko nyuma, and other people will come and overtake you. Just because as we move forward, globally speaking, you find that new skills are needed to meet, the job market that keeps changing every single day. So for me, in my view, universities don't have to close. Lecturers don't have to, and teachers don't have to go home. What they just need to do is to wajiite mkutano as a sector, right? And just look at what are the causes that make most sense to our economy, to the market needs in Kenya, to the market needs regionally within East Africa, and to the market needs, globally. And there's nothing wrong with training a teacher here, and that teacher gets an opportunity to go and work in the UK. What is wrong with that? I mean, really, what is really wrong with that? That person is still a Kenyan. At the end of the day, she will be remitting some monies, back from wherever he is to build home, because ajaenda na watu wake wote, there are still people that they've left, back here. So lastly, I want to talk about a little bit about the point that young people want quick fixes. And do we blame the political class for that? I would not wholesomely blame all politicians. All politicians are bad. Remember, I'm one of them. But here's what I'm saying. There's a global narrative that is impacting young people. Again, this is due to access to internet, peer pressure, and all those things. And me, I call it head of gold, feet of clay.
Kindly elaborate.
Head of gold, feet of clay. Of course, you know clay is weak. Ikishikwa na maji, it will crumble. But on the outside, there's bling bling. So what I'm just trying to say is that, yes, even in the entertainment world and social media and so on, you'd find a young person seeing another one in America and they want to ape. Nothing technically wrong with that, but when it is aped without plan, then sometimes we find ourselves seeing our talented young people, 1 minute their life is up there, the next minute,
they drop.
There's a WhatsApp group to help them pay their rent. That's exactly what I'm saying. But here's the thing. Going forward, we as a community, all of us, no matter your political inclination, young person is young person. We need to go back to the drawing board and develop programs that build capacity,
Okay.
of our young people for income generation and to manage and grow, the income that they are doing. And the Kenya Kwanza government, through all these ministries, capacity building of young people actually is a cross-cutting approach that is being implemented as we speak.
Okay, thank you, Betty, for that. And on that note, we take a break. When we come back, we'll take this conversation forward and talk about political parties and the role they play. Do you feel that political parties actually represent your interests, maybe at the talks that are going on or in any other issue that affects us as a country? That after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. The Senate is set to hold a special sitting next week to adopt a motion to consider the National Dialogue Committee that is mandated with finding a common ground for the political stalemate. National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah says the team is keen on having the talks held within the ambit of the Constitution, hence the need to have it pass through both the Houses of Parliament. The Senate, which resumes early September from its recess, will hold the sittings early in the interest of its magnitude and the 60-day time frame set for it. Ichung'wah further revealed that the committee has finalized preliminary issues, which includes the revision of the framework agreement that will act as a guiding light for the talks henceforth. The 10-member team negotiating the 2022 post-election crisis will report to President William Ruto and Azimio One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga within 60 days. A quick reminder of our question today: do you feel that political parties in Kenya represent your interest? Now remember, the talks going on at the Bomas of Kenya are all about interests. And already there are people who say that our agenda is not represented there. There are some, even within the Jubilee Party, who feel that the Jubilee Party itself is not represented at the talks. The talks have been branded bipartisan talks. There are those who argue that it should be multi-partisan talks. The point being that political parties are key and are crucial, particles in the negotiation of resources at the national level. Hence our question today, whether or not political parties actually do represent our interests. Is it simple, are we simply saying that because we do not have names of different political parties around the table at Bomas of Kenya, that our interests are not represented? Let's start with you, Joseph.
I think to understand this question, we first need to look at our constitution itself, how it was set about. When the Kenyans went to Bomas of Kenya and discussed intensively concerning our political situation in the country and the future of our country, because we are a very young democracy. We adopted a constitution that is more of an American system and then tried to fuse it in our African traditions, whereby we feel the big man of our community holds our voice as a community. This constitution tried to demystify that and try to ensure that people meet and discuss on an ideology and they champion whatever they believe in. When you come to these talks that are happening right now, you say very well that there's parties feel they are not represented on that table. It's not the party that are not represented, it's their person. But when you look at the people on that table right now, the experience they have, they cut across all parties. One has been in 1 or 2, 3, 4 parties before. So you look at that composition and understand, if we can focus on the issues that have been raised by Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, all these issues actually touch on every single Kenyan at some point, if all can be addressed. So for political parties, and then my worry is, as we pride ourselves to be one of the biggest democracies in Africa, and not very, 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 very big in terms of keeping that, you have a government that speaks about independence of institutions to champion on these spaces of political parties. Yet, the same government, through its proxies, trying to kill the political parties. Mm-hmm. How do you explain a majority in parliament by Azimio broken down by the government?
Okay.
You see that challenge, because the reason why as Azimio we decided to put that as an item to be discussed on that forum is because you look at every political party that has a voice that is strong to speak on behalf of the Kenyans on any issue is being targeted by this government. The registrar of political parties, Madam Anne Derito, he's supposed to empower political parties, but through her pen, he's killing any party that stands to challenge any policy by this government for the people. So when we have these democratic spaces, the only channel a Kenyan can speak to power is through political parties. Mm-hmm. Through Jubilee, I'm here today because they look at the space that a young person can hold within that party. You can come and speak about youth issues. But if you make sure that Jubilee is in court throughout 5 years, who will check the government? Mm-hmm. If you ensure you destabilize Wiper, who will speak on behalf of the people who aspire to the ideology of Wiper? Mm-hmm. If you destabilize any party, are you looking for a supermajority in parliament to pass bills that affect Kenyans? So a political party is the only instrument a Kenyan can speak their minds. Mm-hmm. First, it starts with a vote. After you decide who is going to lead you in this government, or who is going to check this government for you, then you need that space to be maintained by the Constitution, and it is guaranteed in the Constitution. So when you have a government that is coming to cripple every political party, then you wonder, as they say, they are democratic, why do they kill any voice that is descending?
Yeah, but Betty, can we really argue that political parties in Kenya do serve the purpose that Joseph is trying to describe to us? Because as we understand, political parties in Kenya are simply vehicles for elections. Immediately after the elections, it becomes a very useless, if I may call it that, house that even if it disappears and fizzles out like PNU did or Jubilee is struggling at this point, it doesn't really matter to the Kenyans.
Well, first of all, allow me to again
Go ahead.
You know, as a Kenyan, let me say this. Hata mke wako usipomweka sawa-sawa, your gardener can help you on some rules. Now, having said that, I don't think it is true at all for my fellow panelists to on live TV say that the government is interfering with political parties and that the registrar of political parties is not up to her role. I don't think that is true. The registrar of political parties has executed her mandate with the highest level of integrity. To my knowledge, remember, I'm also within the political space, and she and her office is guided by the Constitution and is guided by the mandate of which that institution is even created in the first place, right? Secondly, in siasa, isiyo kanisa, every political party exists to clinch power. I mean, and that's a reality globally. You know, if you look at the United States, the Democrats on one hand and the Republicans, you know, that tough thing, what is that thing about? It is about political power, all right? So, the current administration is the Kenya Kwanza administration. The ruling party is UDA. If you're just outsmarted in the political processes, go back to the drawing board and fix your structures. Political parties are independent bodies. I don't think you can leave your house and go and interfere with his house, and he can leave his house and come and interfere in my house. My house is my house with my rules. And each political party have their own manifestos and rules and constitutions, so be it, that they also submit to the same ORPP. And ORPP and Kenyans expect you to operate within what you yourself said, within your constitution, you know, as a party. Now, having said that, back to your main question. Are political parties useful, you know, to Kenyans? Yes, we are a multi-party state, and that is clearly indicated in our constitution. And to my knowledge, there are almost 100 political parties as we speak, legally registered and operating according to the ORPP rules that govern those. Of course, there are large parties, there are small parties, there are old parties, there are new parties, and there are parties in government, and there are those, you know, in quote unquote, you know, opposition. So if you're not meeting your own promises and needs to your party members, you only have yourself, you know, to blame. But us in the UDA party, here is what we are saying. While we are the ruling party, we are also out to sell our agenda. Remember, UDA is also a fairly new party. It's not been there for the last 100 years, all right? We are out to tell the world who we are, what we stand for, get into party recruitment drives. We want as many members to join us as possible. And it is within our constitution to also have charters for youth, charters for women, and each department, you know, has its own programs that uplift the members that subscribe to it.
Okay, thank you, Betty. And let me now introduce, throw a spanner into the works with the introduction of my third panelist this morning, Mundalo Advice, also from the Jubilee Party. And just before you came, of course, Joseph explained to us which part of Jubilee he's representing on this panel, because many may question why do we have two people from the same party on the same panel. So which section of Jubilee Party do you represent on this panel?
First of all, good morning, Ken.
My name is Fred.
Good morning, Fred.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, and good morning to my colleagues and Kenyans. First of all, I think, Fred, Jubilee does not exist in factions. Jubilee is a single party that has some very normal things ongoing, like court cases, and that does not split a party into two. So I'm here authoritatively to represent the Jubilee Party because I still sit on the neck of the party. So we do not exist in factions. Yeah, unless my friend Kagai exists in a faction.
Okay.
Otherwise, we don't exist in faction.
Okay.
The party is one.
Yeah, I'm sure it will come out as we continue discussing the issues we're discussing now. Now, on this issue of political parties, Betty argues that political parties are solely established to grab and clinch power. But the question is it power just for the sake of it? Or do these parties do actually stand for something so that once they get this power, they can actually implement this? I'm asking this question because if you ask any Kenyan what PNU represented, I'm sure not many people would understand. What DP, for example, represented, not many people would understand. What does Jubilee represent that you can actually say this is why you should subscribe to Jubilee Party?
It is actually true that that is the perception of many Kenyans, that parties only exist as vehicles to go and clinch power, that parties do not do anything more after election. But that is not necessarily the reality on the ground, because the process of registration of a political party must have several things that the party champions. Yeah, like when you come to the Jubilee Party, among other things, social democracy, youth inclusion. We are actually the single party that presented the highest number of young aspirants in the last election, because that is part and parcel of the Jubilee agenda, to just be able to project and advocate for the youth issues. Even during the Jubilee administration, you're able to see that was the first time we are now starting to have young people hold positions that were not traditionally perceived to be positions of the young people. That is the time we started having young people sit on boards. That is the time we started having young people become directors. That is the time President Uhuru Kenyatta really tried to ensure that the position of the young people comes to the fore, more than what was traditionally used, that political parties, the space of young people is basically in the background to do mobilization, to exist in the street, and then after you mobilize people for them to come, then the leaders, the Betty Aderas now come to address the people, and then the young people are done. So that is part and parcel of what, for instance, the Jubilee Party is able to do. So when you say that they are essentially vehicles for elections, it is two things to blame. One, we can be able to blame the political parties themselves, because political parties have also fashioned themselves in that aspect. That after the election, you rarely would hear any of them. I would even be more, I would be able to be the devil's advocate and say, Jubilee is even trying that after the election, we are still center stage of conversation up to today. That simply just shows you that we did not exist for election. We exist for many other things. And that's why there can be able to be this push and pull. Remember, in a democracy, you don't just expect that everything must be quiet and the waters must be still. So, but then you look at, for instance, what is happening in UDA. I just saw the Secretary General of UDA the other day launch, I don't know, that was launch a flag of some students who are being given a scholarship fund by the UDA party. And unfortunately, now you see also the media doesn't cover that extensively. Yeah. But because that is part and parcel of what that party is doing. It is not just existing for election. We have seen them go to different parts of the country on agricultural agenda. I have seen that happen with UDA. Not to say that I want to advance the UDA agenda, but just to be realistic of the fact that that is actually what they are doing, away from just being a vehicle for election.
Would you, for example, saying that Jubilee Party and the UDA Party have a lot in common, and that's why you've seen some members of your party take part in parliamentary group meetings for the UDA Party?
What we have in common and what we agree with as a party is that this country has a president. That is the first thing we agree with, because we have had people who have refused to accept the reality. As a party, we don't want to argue with basic reality. The country has a president, we had an election, we lost the election, and we have to move on. Now, that is where we first of all start from. What we are not very in common with UDA is, for example, the youth agenda. I have not seen UDA promote the youth agenda extensively. Most of the young people who even were able to champion the campaign of UDA and the election of President William Ruto, I have not seen them really positioned for a lot of impact in this government. So that is quite a deviation between the Jubilee government, as it were, and UDA. So, and we did not really emphasize also too much on the politicking. The Jubilee Party is more into the governance aspect, especially after you take office. Okay. So that draws us the difference between us and UDA as a party. If we were exactly the same as UDA, then we would be in UDA. We would do not need to have two parties. But then on the second aspect that I was telling you, I said the first thing, we must blame political parties because sometimes that's how we have fashioned ourselves. But two, we must also blame Kenyans because Kenyans have also believed that political parties are not supposed to do much after election. And that's why both Jubilee and UDA represented here receive funds from the ORPP. We always are able to see Kenyans shout to the top when we have funds getting lost at KEMSA, when we have funds getting lost in the ministries. Have you seen Kenyans come out in arms to ask where political parties are taking their funds? Kenyans themselves also, when they are members of these political parties, they must hold the party to account. They must be able to ask the necessary questions. But Kenyans have accepted that political parties are not supposed to do much. They have accepted that their money in the political parties is not supposed to be accounted for. And therefore that makes Kenyans also as well part and parcel of the problem. So they must also be able to put these parties to account because we are receiving money from the taxpayer, just like KEMSA, just like any other institution, and these political parties exist for Kenyans. Kenyans have actually also believed that political parties are vehicles for particular individuals, yeah, that this party belongs to this particular person. Yeah, and that's why they don't want to question anything about the party.
And you talked about the political parties' funding, and yes, it is actually 0.3% of the national revenue, which is significant. We're talking about billions of shillings. Yeah. Yet we see that these parties, most of them, are not sustainable, despite even the kind of political power they wield at the National Assembly level or even the Senate level. What is the issue here with all this money?
I think it depends on the primary driving force for a political party to form, or say a presidential candidate to determine that I want to run on party X or party Y. But it should also not be lost to us that while the political party's funds is taxpayers' money, that fund is subject to audit, that fund is subject to reporting, so it's not money that can just be dished left, right, and center. And back to, just to build on what my colleague, Mr. Advice, I like his name, Mr. Advice was saying in terms of, there are some political parties that on paper, they portray a national outlook, but in reality, they are more or less ethnic based. That is another reality within the political space. But back to now UDA specifically. Yes, we are among the parties that receive the greatest chunk now, I mean with numbers in county assemblies and parliament of the political parties fund. And I can say without a doubt that the agenda for youth, the agenda for women within the UDA party is rife, is building, it is expanding. And it's easy to throw stones at UDA because now that's the party in government. But what we are doing now as a party, government aside, but as a party, the party is engaging its young people who campaign for them, who are within the political space, and not every person can get like a job in government. That's another reality. So what are we doing? We are having, youth business forums that are putting youth and women in groups, building their capacity, connecting them to opportunities for financial inclusion within the current government, and that is also tied to capacity building. It's not just groups for the sake of groups, holding their hands so that together then everybody can start moving forward. And of course we have mainstreamed matters of people with disability, youth with disability, women with disability in all the structures of the party. And a lot is going on. We are in the process of recruiting new members, and we are out there selling our agenda, saying that, hey, of all the 100 parties that are existing in Kenya, why should you elect to join the UDA party? Okay. It is because if you are a member, then you will be able to access, the following array of services, the following array of opportunities to advance yourself, whatever level, that you are.
Yet, If at all these organizations we call political parties have access to so much money from the taxpayer, how come none of them is able to actually carry out a proper election and have properly elected leaders? Because right now, not a single party represented on this table or otherwise has actually had an election.
I think, Fred, before I come to that, let me just respond to a few things that my sister from UDA said that parties exist just for the purpose of attaining power. And that narrative is what actually becomes a threat to our society. Because when you push that as an agenda, that we only have one goal to attain power, then you will lie to Kenyans, you will speak things they want to hear, because you only have one agenda, to get to power. Then when you get to power, then what? That is why for the last 1 year, Kenyans are still yet to understand why this government is in place. The reason we call it an illegitimate government is because they came through power by lying to Kenyans on everything. They bedeviled the previous regime policy, but now they are coming back to it because they had no agenda. One thing I have come to understand is that it's not just about getting power. What is this that we call power? Power is when you understand the needs of the citizen and you come and engage them and you make sure that their livelihoods improves from the previous one. But what has happened in this regime, in fact, we have moved from 120 shillings per kg for coffee to 40 shillings. So Kenyans are still asking themselves, why is this UDA government in power? But as she says, she clarifies, they had only one agenda to attain power, but they did not understand what to do with that power. For the 10 years that Jubilee was in power, even the international community can understand what Kenyans was doing. You can see the infrastructure that the former president has done to this country. You can see the infrastructure development. You can tell what Jubilee stood for. For those 10 years, it was consistent. Even right now, post power, if I can call it like that, you can still see Jubilee because of the manifesto. It's a very, very powerful party that if this government knows, if Jubilee Party is allowed to function as it was, as constituted, as guided by its own constitution, then it shall be a challenge to them because they will not have something to bring to Kenyans because everything, now they are relaunching projects that our regime did. So you can look at that space. And then now when we come to the political fund, the reason why you see most of the parties going down, it is because everything is centered to that aspect of funds. When you get this money, what are you supposed to do? Our Jubilee Party, we have an entire program called Jubilee Mashinani. What is Jubilee Mashinani? The funds that we get, we go back to in fact, our party leader said, the reason why we moved from Pangani to the office that we are in Kileleshwa Degree Garden is because now we want to decentralize this party. We have been in power for 10 years. We want now to go back and empower these young people because we care so much about the quality of a leader than just leadership. When you have the right person in office, you are sure that that person will represent the interests of the people that he represents. But when you have people who just come and do the choir and praise somebody for the sake of getting the ticket, when they get to that office, they don't even have a mind of their own. That's why we usually joke around and say, when you say something like whatever the president says in the media, in 3 months' time or so, this and this will happen. We say, not everybody is from UDA. Because the people from UDA, it's like they have loaned their brains to some place so that somebody thinks on their behalf. As Jubilee Party, we have allowed ourselves to constantly check what is the need of the society, what is the need of the agricultural communities, what is the need of the pastoralist, what is the need of this community. So when we have these political funds, the reason why Jubilee is being not allowed to function is because with the money that we can be allocated, however small, we have specific programs to empower the community itself. Okay. And even when my brother says, now I think you can get the answer to the question you asked the faction, you can see now she's not answering, she's supporting and adding. So you look at what UDA is, it's completely different from Jubilee Party. Okay. And even the people from the former people, the people who used to associate with Jubilee previously, why they are attracted to this UDA, because they don't know how to, like we say, hard work. They don't know how to be. You don't have to be in government to function as a party. Mm-hmm. You can function as a party and be in charge of a constituency where you check the same government. Okay. So the reason why you see all these sideshows is because we have a government that has not declared its agenda. It has not declared its policy. They go to say that about the subsidies, they will abolish them. That is their narrative for election. When they come, they abolish, and then they realize, oh, no, these subsidies must be there.
Okay.
We said in education, now you've seen fuel. Now, the other day I was looking at the importation of oil. They say now we shall not use that formula. We shall do government to government. Now, again, last week, they abolish. It's a government that is about trials and errors.
Advice on the issue of, because I asked Joseph this question and he avoided it, on the issue of elections, party elections, because it is a key issue. It has a lot to do with membership. And if at all the aspirations that you represent for the people, they can only support it through membership to a political party. Yet, without even proper elections or proper officials, which should be a byproduct of the membership of the party, we cannot really talk about proper political parties. When you talk about Jubilee and you talk about membership, can you even say that Jubilee members in Kenya are numbered this much? That in Nakuru County, for example, we have 20,000 or 100,000 members of Jubilee who are actually members and do not belong to any other political party?
I think Joseph formed his own question and answered it. But then in the aspect of political party membership, every party, for you to get registered, you must be able to submit a minimum threshold, which is 1,000 members for all the counties, for each county in Kenya. So all political parties to begin with have a membership. Jubilee Party has a membership of up to 19 million members. Now, what then happens is the accountability of these members, I cannot be able to authoritatively tell you that it's up to 100%. Because today, as per the Registrar of Political Parties, you can actually change your political party online. So you can't know what happened overnight. Maybe you have 1 million people who have actually been able to reduce and such. And be that as it may, political parties also exist within their constitutions and the Constitution of the Republic. Now, for a party to be able to even have its officials, there is a process to it. And that is what makes the party now become accountable. For instance, the other process that tried to even change the officials at Jubilee, so it could not be able to go through. Why? Because the membership of the party was not represented. The membership of the party did not take center stage in this. And one of the problems we have in the Azimio coalition is we are very quick to throw blame at somebody. We are very quick. We want somebody to help us legislate discipline. You can't really legislate discipline and good manners. You can't do that. You can't be able to say that every time you have a problem, it's because of someone else. You have been able to see how many narratives we have for our laws of election. We have everyone is giving a narrative. I think the latest is now Mutahi Ngunyi, with a narrative of why it happened the way it did. But nobody in Azimio wants to accept. And that is now the problem, what I call the Azimio culture. That instead of looking and saying, okay, there seems to be a problem here, we are quick to just say, we paint the kettle black and call it a bad name and move on. Look at what happened with the political parties in Azimio, like UDM. And a few days after election, UDM was able to have a meeting and with the president-elect then, and start charting a different path. Immediately, Azimio now was able to say UDM belongs to Azimio. But before that, they had ignored UDM. Now, when a political party, when a member of your marriage does that, you are actually supposed to ask the hard questions and say, what exactly went wrong? We're able to see what happened in the finance bill. Yeah? Members of Azimio voted for the finance bill. Instead of Azimio looking back and saying, where might have been the problem? The problem is call them Kenya Kwanza and move forward. Instead of solving the problem, the issue is just call them Kenya Kwanza.
I mean, these questions, these decisions at the helm of the party, who to form a coalition with, whether post-election or pre-election,
yes.
Shouldn't that be subject to the membership of the party? And the reason why we have so many problems is that you're not even sure about your own membership as a party.
No, the decisions about the political party on such cases are decisions of the National Executive Committee of the party. Because once the party membership is able to ratify and have a NEC, then the NEC is allowed now to be able to make such decisions on behalf of members. So it is not about the party. You can actually be able to foresee a situation where a party has to call 1 million members for you to really have a decision. That's why the NEC exists, the National Executive Committee. So it is at that level that such decisions are actually made. What I'm trying to advance is the reality that we must be able to have a culture of understanding that politics is a game of negotiation. Yeah, and Adera put it right when she said, hii ni siasa. At the end of the day, there must be give and take, and there must be negotiation. We can't just sit and say, just because we said we exist in the same coalition, so somebody would make a decision, not involve anybody, and everyone is supposed to follow it because we exist. No, no, no. It doesn't go that way. It doesn't mean that you'll make decisions that do not make sometimes basic sense. For instance, when you say the country doesn't have a president, and the country has a president, and the president was sworn in by all of us, and me as a NEC member of Jubilee, my party leader handed over the government to another person. How do I come out to say that the country doesn't have a president? I will not even be making sense to my own self. So such decisions, you don't make them and then you expect that all people must be able to follow through with you just because we exist in the same coalition. The issue is we must be able to sit down and have a conversation and say, look here, this is what we think. How can we move forward? Recently, during the bipartisan, the choice of members of the bipartisan committee, I don't know that it's being called the dialogue team right now. Kenya Kwanza gave a list. Did you see any problem with the Kenya Kwanza members? There was none. But when Azimio gave a list, the first person who complained about that list was Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who said, wait, this thing does not, I don't even know how this decision was made. And that is characteristic of Azimio. We have to first of all accept that that is the reality. After we accept that that is the reality, we look at how then can we be able to solve this problem? Okay. How can we be able to coalesce, have a talk with each other and have a decision instead of always blaming Kenya Kwanza for all our problems? That every time there is a problem in Azimio, the problem is Kenya Kwanza. When our member doesn't vote the way we wish he should vote, the problem is Kenya Kwanza. The question then becomes, how powerful is Kenya Kwanza? And how much money does Kenya Kwanza have that it is buying everybody?
And talking about how powerful parties are, I am sure you would want to probably oppose Joseph and support advice. But talking about how powerful...
Or just be sensible.
But how powerful parties are. The power of a party in Kenya today is directly linked to the leadership of that party. That if the leader is the president, then it is a powerful party for that period. Once he exits as president, the power of that party dwindles. Do you agree with that statement?
I think Jubilee this side is a classic example.
Classic
example.
We have seen what Kanu did, we have seen what PNU did
exactly.
after the exit of the president.
And yes, we proudly occupy the position of being the most powerful and
so
most
once
populous
William
party.
Ruto leaves,
actually,
UDA will become
actually
not so powerful.
UDA is going to be around for a while. So the earlier Kenyans get used to that, the better. Of course, according to our constitution, President Ruto will not be president forever. He has a possible term limit, and then someone else, will come. But in terms of the party, we are not just about to go anywhere. We are around. Now, if only if only this side, all right, would stop having mubabas who put sufuria on their heads, destabilizing a legally elected government in the name of maandamano over issues that can be, have people sit around a table the way we are sitting and fix. I think that side needs to wake up. They had their 10 years. They did what they could, to the best of their knowledge, really, to Kenyans, and that period ended. And as advice is advising us, in broad daylight, we saw a clear, transparent, open, official, scheduled, planned ceremony of handing of power. And that was peaceful. That's not something you get very easily, by the way, within the African continent. Getting that peaceful transition of power is something that we, as a community, as a country, are lauded upon, even by ourselves, as well as outsiders. Now, so you had your time. Give us our time. UDA and Kenya Kwanza made promises, yes, and promises were made within context of manifestos. Even an MCA had a manifesto. right? All the way up, no matter your party, no matter your coalition. But now that you are in power, you actually got in, you are elected, you're sitting, then look at this, your manifesto, and figure out now ways in which you will now meet the promises you made. The manifesto of UDA and manifesto of Kenya Kwanza was not a manifesto to be implemented in 1 year. That was a 5-year manifesto within the current administration before, again, God willing, we come back again to ask the mandate, of Kenyans. Now, day one, this side, kuweka sufuria kwa kichwa. The president is not doing this, the president, Hey, ata muke, ukimoa sa hiyo. And even if she gets pregnant that same night, that baby will take 9 months. Ndio iive, ndio itoke, ndio ikue binadamu. My point is, yes, I said and I still stand by what I said, that tusidanganyane in siasa. Political parties are out to clinch power, all right? However, that is not the only agenda. Once you've clinched that power, then what? You have to actually provide services to the people. And that is what this government is doing. That is what UDA now as an independent party is actually doing. And let it not be lost for you that if it were not for all the money that this economy lost because of your maandamanos, we still have managed to bring the cost of living down. We have managed to beef up, farmers through affordable fertilizers, through subsidies. There's expanded trade going on at all manner of levels. There's increased infrastructural development, and this is just about a year in office. The environment, climate action, greening the country, all these things. Oh yeah, you can laugh, but it is a fact that we now have historically Toyota Fortuna assembly plant in Kenya. Who does that? Only the current president. And when such a thing happens, for example, how many of these young people we've been talking about here, will get opportunities to be employed there. So when a government is doing right, let us say when they're doing right, that they're doing right. It is not that sasa unafunika to your head so much na sufuria that you can't even see the good side of the government, the services that are actually happening. The cost of gas was high in that other administration,
okay.
But over time, things have been put in place, and this is just the beginning.
Point made, Betty.
Just the beginning.
I think, Fred,
Joseph, yes, even as you react to that, I still pose the same question, that once your party leader exits from power, that's the beginning of the end for your party. And probably that's the same problem we're seeing with Jubilee. That once, with the exit of President Uhuru Kenyatta, that is the beginning of the end. We saw it with Kibaki, immediately left, PNU was a done deal. Right now, I don't think it even has one members in parliament.
I think, Fred, today, I think I am more prouder to be a member of Azimio than any other party. Because even when you listen to this panel, you can understand, from her own statement, the head of gold and the feet of clay. This is a government that cannot even hold. They don't even know what they stand for. Because when you listen to the argument that my sister and now supported by my brother is saying, to answer your question, our party leader is not going anywhere. They are forcing him to retire, and he has a party to lead. He has a serious following of young people, not just in Kenya, across the continent. This is one president that was able to affect so many for this country and even beyond. Even right now, he just went to Ethiopia for how many months and there was peace. He has a leadership skill that affects every person that is around him. Then the reason why this regime one Jubilee closed and dead through the proxies is because they know this party has a serious leader. And they are forcing him to retire by benefits of which he has not even asked for. So this party called Jubilee, it is going to be here for a long time. We may not be the one holding the house on the hill, but what Kenyans feel across board is like, we were cheated in this government. And seriously, we can see the contrast between what Jubilee stood for and this Kenya government. And don't forget, this regime is led by a person who was in Jubilee. A person when he was told by the party leader, let us serve the people, he went on top of cars, which he's doing even till now. He can't even sustain himself in the office. So I think to answer this question better, it is looking at how the attacks on Jubilee are coming. Why are they coming if Jubilee party leader exits and then it's a weak party?
Okay.
All right. Now, to answer something else, my sister says that they needed time to do many things, that we put our sufurias on the head. We are speaking the voice of the Kenyans. People can't feed their families. People trivialize that sufuria so much. But when Jubilee SG, Jeremiah Kioni, decided to speak, it's because people are crying. You can't go in a house and find there is no food and stay quiet just because we need to give this government time. Mm-hmm. They said in 100 days, so and so, unga kwanza itakuwa 70. We asked for just 100. They said 70. They said in 100 days. When I put this Bible down, I don't know how much strength we need to bring this Bible down, because we need it down so much. Look at, we were discussing about education. How many young people in this country will afford education? By the policy that they are bringing, by whatever this government is trying to achieve. We don't even know what they want to achieve. So we look at a government, and my sister, Jubilee, or UDA is not a new party. UDA was PDR. It was a constituency of Jubilee party.
Okay. Okay.
So it was still there. So we have a government who desired power, but they never understood how that power works for the people.
Okay.
Now they are trying to do anything to...
Yet, with every election, we get a new party in Kenya. If we may draw parallels with other jurisdictions, the UK, for example, the existence of the Conservative Party or the Labour Party is not really affected by whoever is leader. The same with even close by, Chama cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania. We've seen the ANC party in South Africa. Now with the rise of the EFF, Julius Malema's party. How come parties in Kenya do not have that culture? What is so different with Kenyans when it comes to political parties? Advice?
It is about the maturity of the democracy. We have to accept that we are not yet at the level of the countries you've been able to mention, because most of us in the country, from the people themselves, still have a very high belief of the political party and the political party leader. The two are like they're Siamese twins, like this party exists because of this person. And when this person exists, the party dies. And that's why you're able to see that also carrying along the problem of governments. It is not easy for governments to be popular. And that's why after every election, it is always a correct political strategy for anyone who wants to be in the next administration to be able to draw a different political party or a political vehicle just to disassociate from the previous regime. And that is just how our democracy and our politics is. But give it to us that since independence, the only party that was able to be in power and was able to do quite well after election was actually the Jubilee Party, because we have 36 members of parliament. PNU, when it was leaving power, it couldn't manage two. Mm-hmm. NAC, when it was leaving power, they couldn't manage. I think they had nobody. So give it the benefit of doubt that in that transition, the Jubilee Party has really tried and even been able to sustain conversations this far. Yeah, and part of the what would be the problem is nobody is saying that the political party leadership of Jubilee, like when my friend says the political party leader is going nowhere and whatever, you know, this is not a game of energy, it's a game of strategy and it's a game of discipline and reality. The Retirement Benefits Act is the one that says that once you serve 6 months after office, that will also happen to President William Ruto. That as president, 6 months after office, you will not be expected to really lead a political party. As, from the NEC perspective, as a party leader, maybe you can be a partner or something else. So that is not something that somebody is saying. That is something that that is happening by law. So it is not about how energetic we are in arguing about that point, but it is just the reality. So in answering your question, our democracy is not at that level, and that's why we are still struggling. But we are moving towards the right direction. We might not be moving as fast, but give it to us that we are moving toward the right direction. Today, Kenyans are able to actually discuss issues. We saw what happened even during the finance bill. For the first time, we had over 1,000 memoranda submitted to Parliament because Kenyans were interested in the conversation. That never used to happen before. So we might not be moving as fast as we hope to be moving, but we are actually steps towards the right direction. Kenyans are now more interested in the practicability of the solution, and that's why you can be able to see questions like, yes, the government might not be doing everything that we hope it's supposed to be doing, but when we put sufurias on our head, how does it help? When we go to the street, how does it help? Does it not just be able to intensify the problem? Because Kenyans are now interested in alternative opposition and not alternative drama and theatrics. Because what has been used and what this country has now been used to in the name of opposition is drama and theatrics, where we do not provide any alternative, but we are just able to actually laugh at Kenyans and laugh at their problems. Because when we move around and put sufurias on our head, for instance, so how does that reduce the cost of living?
Yeah.
When we move around and are able to hold demonstrations and cause chaos, and therefore the town is impassable, nothing can go on, business are stopped, how does that reduce the cost of unga from 200 to 70 as we hope? So the thing is, we must be able, and the country is moving towards that direction. The questions now are, yes, the government might not be doing everything right, but what is the alternative? Remember, at some point, Azimio promised an alternative finance bill, but it never came to be. And that is the kind of opposition politics that will be able to move the country forward, where we are not just be able to, we are not just emphasizing on the theatrics and the drama, but we are providing real alternatives. We are saying, this government has not taken care of the youth agenda. This is what we think. Like what they are saying, that they have been able to do innovation and business hubs. I agree, and that is very good. But this country and Kenya Kwanza has to move away from the imagination that all youth must be innovators and businessmen. Okay. Because when the jobs are there, they are being given to Evans Kidero. So let the young people also get these opportunities just as much as they need to be innovators and businessmen.
And I'll come back to you, Joseph, because I'll give you each an opportunity to give your final thoughts, and you'll get to respond to what Advice has said. But the problem could be, and the diagnosis of these political parties could be the fact that no single political party can actually drive one conversation that is identifiable with a voter. That all political parties want to do everything. That we cannot single out a political party and say that this one is probably leaning towards environmental sustainability and conservation, that probably this one is leaning towards empowerment of the society, this one is leaning towards nationalizing the country or Pan-Africanism. That every single party coming into power wants to do healthcare, education, and everything from the start to finish, and it is practically impossible. Don't you think that probably the discussion should move to political parties actually driving identifiable discussions?
And I think they do. Only that our voters are diverse in terms of socio-demographics, in terms of needs, and our voters, given the stage where we are now, economically and and democratically, as a country, then even if you're running as an MCA, you have got to have a message for everybody. What is your message that resonates with the young people in your constituency who are facing a particular issue? The women, the PWD, the environment, the river, the sun, and all these things, all right? So I don't think there's one party that can come in to only do one thing or promise one thing. However, there can be a model. The model can be one, but hits almost every other service need of the populace. And in the event that you come in, whether you are coming in as to form a government, or you're just coming in to represent your people in your constituency, there is something you must have said or did that convinced majority of your people to have confidence in you and actually bring you in. Now, in Kenya, I'm not sure whether this is fortunate or unfortunate, but for me, I think we are in a good place, considering that our democracy is just about 60 years old. We are not 200 years old and so on, and we are growing. And we are learning with every other successive election that comes and goes. If you take an example of, say, the United States, there are only like two options, really. There's no, the middle ground. The gray area is so small, and you can hardly be elected for anything as an independent candidate. They are, but they are very few. So you're either extreme left or extreme right.
Okay.
I think what our democracy and our constitution is doing is to expand the middle space so that everybody can have an option. Everybody, if you don't feel too left or too right, there's an option for you to join, in the middle.
And as you give us your final word on this as well.
And as I give my final word on this is that, well, as a people, we need to speak with the language that builds. Let us build. The current administration is so open and willing to feedback, all right? Areas where they need to answer to, they're ready and willing to answer that. But we are just saying that let it be within a respectful, dialogue-ish, conversation. And that's why we are actually excited and happy with the progress made by the dialogue team and the dialogue platform in the first place. To put their issues that are eating us so that both sides can agree on something that then would make the lives of the common mwananchi better going forward, as we, of course, continue to be open, to be put to account as the ruling coalition and party.
Thank you, Betty. Finally, Joseph, your final words.
Yes, I want to just mention two things, maybe three. When we come to the whole of this discussion on political parties, is about what a party stands for and are they comfortable with championing whatever they stand for. When you look at Jubilee Party, since the inception of the party, we have had a single agenda to develop our country. And even in the years that Kenyans allowed us to lead this country, we constantly looked for avenues to improve our road network, our agriculture, our trade, our innovations for young people, the technologies and everything. We aspire to put this country on a global map. And that is where we left it. The threat of this regime bringing it down, I think, through the political parties and this conversation that we are having every day, every morning and evening, it will inform this government that this government, you need to understand what the people need. It's not just whatever you need. Mm-hmm. So when we look at how my brother bedevils demonstrations, it is not the demonstrations that are a problem. It is how the government in place responds to this demonstration. They choose when to send police and when not to. We saw during the Nyamakema demonstration, because of the invasion of the foreigners within the trade environment, they were demonstrating very well. But when they decided to take a petition to the Harambee House, then they were tear gassed. They were just voicing their own issues. Look at now, if you actually go to town, a building from second floor is empty upwards. Why? There is no trade. There is no economy that is around the city again. When you look at what happened recently in Eldoret, young people were robbed there of their future. When they chose to demonstrate, action was taken. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the word maandamano, it is only when it is angering the person in charge that it becomes a bad thing. They forget, the two panelists forget, the constitution was birthed out of demonstrations. Even the county government that we pride ourselves in, it was a product of demonstration. Mm-hmm. So you cannot deny the Kenyans their space within constitution to come and say, we don't want this is what we want, and we have this right. So my parting shot is just to tell young people, it is not a bad thing to have a contrary opinion. It is not a must that we agree with everything. We don't have to be in government, all of us. Political parties can be institutions. Okay. And when we do that, we bring up young people who can come to be future leaders. So allow political parties to function. In this dialogue that is happening, what I will just ask, they maintain the item that we asked for as Azimio was people-centered item. So if they can maintain that, I'm sure we'll go
I only have 45 seconds for you advice, unfortunately. Just your parting shot only.
It is fine. My parting shot will just be to the dialogue team. That in as much as the conversation is happening and is the right thing, it is important for them to also include the agenda of the young people of this country. Because especially both of them have actually used the young people to get into office. Azimio has used the young people to do demonstrations, mobilize and all these things. But when it comes to the topic of discussion, when they need now, where now people are discussing the real issues, they must have an agenda about the young people. And my last one would just be to be that opposition politics must now start being politics that can be able to be accountable. It is not about using 1940 methods. Even if that method solved a problem in 1940, doesn't mean it cannot solve a problem. Must solve a problem today. Okay. Demonstrations happened in the yesteryears. Today, we have a constitution that can allow us to talk. If demonstrations are more important than anything else, then why did we have demonstrations and now have talks? Okay. Why did people have to die? Okay. Why did we need to lose young people and then today have the conversation? We would have just started there and had the conversation. Thank you.
Mundalo Advice, thank you so much. National Youth Chairperson and NEC member, Jubilee Party. Betty Adera, UDA Party, and Joseph Kagai, political strategist and also representing the Jubilee Party. Our panelists this morning discussing the issue of the parties, political parties in Kenya, and whether or not they actually serve your interest. We'll be getting some feedback on that question later on, but for now, allow me to read this editorial comment by TV47. Today, let's talk about the state of healthcare in Kenya. The ongoing National Health Facility Census serves as a critical mirror to assess the nation's commitment to the well-being of its citizens. Our hope is that this census serves as an opportunity to transcend the mere tally of healthcare facilities and actually ventures into a more profound exploration. Beyond the brick and mortar, it is imperative to prioritize the human resource component. Healthcare workers, the lifeblood of any healthcare system, have long borne the weight of inadequate resources, poor working conditions, and low remuneration. Neglecting their well-being only undermines a sector's development, but also perpetuates a vicious cycle of attrition and brain drain. The tireless dedication of healthcare workers amid adversity is a testament to their unwavering commitment to the nation's health. However, their efforts deserve more than token recognition. They warrant comprehensive support. The challenges faced by doctors, nurses, and support staff have reached a point where their welfare has become inseparable from the success of the sector itself. Something must be done. Is it time to consider revisiting the management of healthcare workers at the national level? Would this be seen as an attempt to undermine the principle of devolution? Wouldn't a comprehensive national strategy result in streamlining policies, standardized training, and equitable distribution of resources? Is it within our power to ensure we reverse the trend where healthcare professionals are increasingly seeking opportunities abroad? These are the real discussions that we should be having as a nation. While devolution has its merits, it must not overshadow the imperative to develop a robust healthcare workforce and a comprehensive